There are very few moments left in gaming where something genuinely surprises me. Not because games aren't improving, but because after thousands of hours behind the wheel, you start to recognize patterns. You know what's coming. You know what to expect. A new map gets announced. A few screenshots get released. A trailer drops. And before you even load in, you've already built an image of what the experience is going to be. That's exactly what happened here. I thought I knew what Illinois was. I thought I had already seen the best parts. I thought this was going to be another solid expansion that added a few roads, a few industries, and another state to the growing ATS map. Then I started driving. And within minutes, that assumption completely fell apart. The strange thing wasn't that Illinois looked good. ATS has looked good before. The strange thing was how often I forgot I was evaluating a DLC. I wasn't paying attention to map design anymore. I wasn't looking for flaws. I wasn't comparing it to previous expansions. I was simply driving, exploring, getting distracted, taking roads I didn't need to take, stopping in places where I had absolutely no reason to stop. And that's when I realized something. The best compliment you can give a simulator is when it makes you forget you're playing one, when the destination stops mattering, when the cargo stops mattering, when the game itself disappears and all that's left is the experience. That's what Illinois did to me. And by the time I finished exploring the state, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just another map expansion. This felt like a turning point, a glimpse of what American Truck Simulator is capable of becoming. And after spending a lot of time driving through Illinois, I think it contains some of the most impressive work we've ever seen in ATS. Let's start with the place that completely changed my expectations: Chicago. Because what they've built here is on a completely different level. For years, ATS cities have followed a familiar formula. You approach them, you drive through a few major roads, you make your delivery, and eventually you're back on the highway. The city serves its purpose and then fades into the background. Chicago doesn't do that. Chicago demands your attention. The moment the skyline appears in the distance, you can already tell this is something special. The city feels enormous, not because of clever camera tricks, not because of oversized buildings, but because of how naturally it unfolds around you. Every mile draws you deeper into it. The highways become more complex. The traffic becomes denser. The infrastructure becomes more layered. And before you know it, you're completely surrounded by one of the most convincing urban environments ATS has ever produced. What impressed me most wasn't actually the skyline. As beautiful as it is, skyscrapers alone don't make a great city. Roads do. And Chicago has some of the best road design I've ever seen in ATS. Highways intersect with other highways. Exit ramps branch off in multiple directions. Industrial corridors connect freight districts. Bridges stretch across the city. Roads pass above other roads, then below them, then through them. Everything feels interconnected, everything feels purposeful, and most importantly, everything feels believable. Driving through Chicago genuinely feels different from driving through every other city in ATS. There's a sense of scale that previous cities simply couldn't achieve. You feel small. You feel like you're moving through a living transportation network rather than a collection of roads placed on a map. And that's exactly what Chicago should feel like. This is one of the most important freight hubs in North America. Millions of tons of cargo move through this region every year. Railways, warehouses, distribution centers, intermodal yards, industrial districts. Everything exists to keep freight moving. And ATS captures that incredibly well. The city feels busy, not in an artificial way, in a believable way. The kind of busy that makes you slow down and look around. The kind of busy that makes you miss your exit because you're too distracted by what's happening around you. More than once, I found myself taking detours just to keep exploring. Not because I needed to, because I wanted to. And that's a sign of great map design. The world becomes more interesting than the objective. The visual quality plays a huge role as well. Illinois might be one of the best-looking states ever released for ATS. The lighting feels more natural. The materials feel more realistic. Road surfaces react beautifully to changing light conditions. Buildings blend into their surroundings more convincingly than ever before. Everything feels cohesive, especially during sunrise and sunset. There were moments where the city looked almost photorealistic. The reflections, the shadows, the atmosphere, the sheer density of the environment. It all comes together in a way that feels remarkably immersive. But as impressive as Chicago is, it wasn't the location that shocked me the most. That honor belongs to Thornton Quarry. And honestly, nothing prepared me for this place. Not screenshots, not trailers, not developer previews, nothing. The first time I entered Thornton Quarry, my immediate reaction was simple. How big is this thing? Because it just keeps going, and going, and going, and going. Every time you think you've seen the entire site, another section appears, another road reveals itself, another layer opens up. The scale is absolutely ridiculous. This isn't a quarry that feels large by ATS standards. This feels large by real-world standards. Your truck suddenly feels tiny. The roads winding through the quarry make you feel tiny. The massive walls surrounding you make you feel tiny. Everything about the location emphasizes scale, and that's incredibly difficult to achieve in a game where the map itself is compressed. Yet somehow, they managed it. The quarry feels massive because of how intelligently it's designed. The elevation changes constantly. The roads twist and descend deeper into the operation. Different sections reveal themselves gradually. You're never shown everything at once. You're constantly discovering new parts of it, and that creates an incredible sense of depth. At times, it almost feels like you're driving through a separate map entirely. The atmosphere is fantastic. Heavy machinery sits throughout the site. Industrial structures dominate the landscape. Massive excavation zones stretch into the distance. Dusty roads weave between towering quarry walls. The entire place feels alive, operational, functional, believable. And what I love most is how different it feels compared to Chicago. One moment, you're navigating one of the most detailed urban environments in ATS history. The next, you're deep inside one of the largest industrial locations the game has ever seen. That contrast is what makes Illinois so memorable. By the end of my time with Illinois, I wasn't thinking about individual features anymore. I wasn't thinking about specific roads. I wasn't thinking about individual landmarks. I was thinking about how the entire experience made me feel. And the feeling was simple. This is one of the most complete map expansions ATS has ever received. Chicago alone would have been enough to make this DLC memorable. Thornton Quarry alone would have been enough to make this DLC memorable. The fact that both exist in the same expansion is what makes Illinois special. But what really impressed me is that the experience doesn't begin and end with Chicago. As you travel across the state, you'll find yourself driving through places like Rockford, Peoria, Springfield, Bloomington-Normal, Champaign, Quincy, and several other cities that help bring the entire state to life. Each one has its own character. Some are built around industry, some are built around agriculture, some are important transportation hubs, and together they create a road network that feels incredibly authentic to the Midwest. No matter where your delivery takes you, there's always something interesting waiting along the route. A new skyline, a busy industrial district, a small town tucked between open farmland, a massive freight facility, or simply a stretch of road that reminds you why ATS is so relaxing to play in the first place. And after exploring Illinois, I genuinely believe we're looking at one of the most important DLCs ATS has ever released. Because somewhere between the towering skyline of Chicago, the endless depths of Thornton Quarry, the freight corridors of Rockford, the highways around Springfield, and the quiet roads stretching across the Illinois countryside, I found myself thinking the same thing over and over again. This doesn't feel like a game anymore. It feels like a place.